Good day. Today we're going to be discussing Chapter 6, JavaScript and CSS, but specifically emphasis on CSS. So, what is CSS? It's basically a cascading style sheets language, right? And it's used to style the way a web page looks by writing specific syntaxes. So CSS has rules. Two of the main rules are selector and declaration block. So the selector indicates what elements the CSS rules applies to, right? The declaration block contains one or more CSS declarations, which indicate how to style the selected element or elements. So if we can look at how that looks in the VS Code within this HTML document. So in this rule, the selector, it targets the paragraph element. So as you can see here, the selector targets the paragraph element. And then here we have the declaration block, which contains this font size, which is 2em. So selectors determine which HTML elements are affected by the CSS rules. So when you look at this example here, the body, the rule applies the Arial font to the body element and all its child elements. That's what this rule does. And there's also class selectors as well. But before we move there, so as you can see, in this body, there's the selector and then there's the declaration block, right? What happens is, this is the selector, and in the declaration block, there's the font family, which is Arial. You can manipulate this and change the font to something else. And on the web page, the font can change. Then we have class selectors as well. So class selectors select elements based on the class attribute. So here's a way we can see class selectors. So this rule applies to all elements with the class, which is I. So I is the class. And within this class element, there is background color, width, height, and border radius. And to each of these properties, there's a value assigned. So the background color is blue, width is 20%, height is 20%, border radius is 50. So within this class, there can be changes that are made. So if I decide to change this to green, you'll see a difference. Now this has changed to green. That's because I changed the background color here to green. And so on. If I change the width and the height and the border radius, that changes. That's within the class, that's in the class selector. Then we have ID selectors. ID selectors select elements based on the ID attribute. So it selects elements based on the ID attribute. So when you look at this code here, you have the right eye, let me say ID selector. This is basically the ID selector. What this does is selects specific elements based on this selector over here. So this rule positions the element with ID equals right eye, and it places it 20% from the left and 20% to the top. That's basically what the ID selector here contains. So if I could change this, what will happen is this value changes, and basically it will place it 40% to the left because I changed it within the ID selector. And now it moves in that direction. And then I can also change it back as well. That's ID selectors. Then moving on to declarations. So what are declarations? So declarations essentially are, wait, let me quickly find it. Yeah, so CSS declarations go inside declaration blocks. So we're saying there's two rules. One of them is the declaration block. So the declaration goes within the declaration block, right? And they're made up of two parts, the property and the value. So the property is the part of a declaration tells what should be modified. And then the value tells how the property should be changed. So basically the example I was showing here, right? I was changing the value. These are the values and these are the properties. So for declarations, like, it defines the styles to be applied. So each declaration consists of a property and a value. So if we look at this here, in this block of code we have the background color, width, height, and border radius. These are basically the properties. Those are the properties. So the property is part of a declaration. The property part of a declaration tells what should be modified. So the properties are the things that are being modified when we change the values. Then assigned to the properties, we have specific values. So for this first property, background color, we have green. This next one, we have 20%, which is the width. To this property height, we have 20% as a value. And to this border radius, we have 50% as a value. So as I showed, these values can be changed and it will be manipulated and a change will be made on the web page. So if I change this to border radius 20% and I change this property background color to red, there will be specific changes that are made on the web page. And now it changes to red. And also the the border radius also changed as well. So you can see now the shape changed too. That's because I changed the values which are assigned to the properties. So yeah, those are the key points essentially. So all of this is contained within style tags over here. So the CSS codes are presented in the style tags. That's how you write the CSS code in your HTML, and basically just manipulate the data, and then it changes and varies in the on the web page. So yeah, and the body contains a paragraph and two div elements. So this here is yeah, all the elements contained in the body tag. But mainly this is the CSS code that you write to change and modify the web page and style it. So yeah, we went through what a selector is, declaration block is, and how it works. And yeah, the properties and the values as well. The values assigned to the properties. So if we can do another example and see how that will be changed within the web page. In this class here, we have the background color, width, height, border radius. I can change the height to 50%. The color to blue. And the font size in the paragraph to 4. And those will change. So yeah, that's basically how CSS syntaxes work. Just a summary of how to see it. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.